We all have to eat. You might as well find out where the best food is. From restaurant reviews to the fun of food from around the region to around the world. This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And welcome to The Food Show. I am Andrew Coppolino. Really great to have you alongside here today. Beautiful Sunday, high atop the, I guess it used to be called the McLaren building or something, but now there's an Honest Lawyer pub has apparently taken over, and that's where you can see us acting out here every Sunday, playing around with some food, and we always have a few guests in the studio. Today we're absolutely packed with guests in the studio, and I'm really pleased. I'm going to introduce them right now because we have a lot to cover. I want to get right to it. I've got with me from the Kitchener Fire Department, the Chief Tim Beckett. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Good afternoon, Andrew.
It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
And to his left, we have Lyle Kwan. He's the Chief of the Waterloo Fire Department.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here.
Yeah, wonderful to see you. And now the Cambridge Fire Chief was unavailable, so in his place we've got Lou Gomes. He is obviously a firefighter from the Cambridge Fire Department, but he's also, very interestingly, the host of The Fire Hall Chef on Rogers TV. Come up to that mic, say hello, welcome.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Andrew.
And finally, sorry, we have to leave out James. He's not a firefighter, but he is a man who knows quite a bit about community, civic interest, and communication. He's from communicateandhow.com. It's James Howe. He also has a blog, Perspectives from King in Ottawa. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Andrew. You caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting the double
intro.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to be talking to us. We're going to get to that in just a second, but you're going to be talking to us a little bit about a thing called social media. And you've made a sort of a leap into the food realm, which is why you're on the show today. The other gentleman, of course, we've all heard stories about fire hall cooking and fire hall 3-alarm chili and things like that. So there's sort of a natural alliance there. But there's you're able to find a kind of a natural pairing up between what you call social media perspective or social media and food, which I think is going to be very interesting to hear about. Did you know, gentlemen, that today is National Lobster Newburg Day? Lobster Newburg, of course, is butter, cream, cognac and eggs all mixed together.
And that's coming in halfway through
the show? That's coming in, yeah, that's right. Very good. You see how these guys think, eh? Well, you get them
it's the old groaning board over here. So
it's also Sweden's Waffle Day. So in Sweden, if you're in Sweden, we wish you a happy waffle day. If you know anything about social media, or you probably heard about it, and maybe don't know too much about it, or maybe you visited it, events that are called social media breakfasts have become very, very popular here in Waterloo region. They've caught on wildly, in fact, and there's an upcoming one, as we've been talking about, that is focused on food. And to tell us a little bit more about it, James Howe, well, first of all, maybe define for some people who may not be too familiar with what it is. What is social media?
Well, social media is basically anything that's on the internet that helps people to connect, make relationships, participate in an online community. Most people would think of it as things such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, blogging, Pinterest these days. Basically anywhere that people are interacting with each other online.
Now, this is obviously a new phenomenon. It's something that's sort of welled up from the grassroots, I guess, hasn't it? It's not something that's sort of been decreed by any kind of larger organizations. It really is a grassroots kind of movement, these connectivities that happen.
Well, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to feature food in our next social media breakfast. It's actually going to be...
It's not really a breakfast, is it?
No, this time it's social media breakfast after hours.
Yeah.
It's 7:30 p.m. on April the 17th, and we're bringing in a panel of people who all have something to do with food, and they talk about it and they experience it with others through social media.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be down in Cambridge, I understand.
It's at the
beautiful Cambridge Mill.
Right, the Cambridge Mill. I've never been there. Just looking at their website has me salivating. It looks like it promises to be an excellent evening. We'll be there in the evening, so we'll see it all lit up by the river right in downtown Galt.
Beautiful.
They're doing the food. So it promises to be delicious, delicious, delicious.
Now, what is your take on? I'm interested in hearing from you as a sort of a guy who's got his fingers on the pulse of a couple of areas throughout the region of Waterloo, and maybe specifically Kitchener as well. What do you see as a relationship? What is food? What are restaurants and food? What do they mean to the lifeblood of a city, as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think restaurants are really, and food places are something we all have in common. Everybody eats. Everybody enjoys eating. Whether you have a big budget or you're working with a tight budget, you're always looking for ways to celebrate food and to share food. A lot of our celebrations are based upon food. And so naturally, a lot of people then go online to share recipes or to connect with chefs or restaurateurs. For farmers, being online is a great way to help to get people to understand that their food does come from a farmer's field, and that they in many cases local food as well, so that people realize that just down the road
that's become a
pressing
pressing issue for people, hasn't it? They're really concerned about that now more than ever, haven't they?
Absolutely, yeah. The local food movement is huge. And online, through social media, one of the things that I first found out, especially when I got onto Twitter, was that there was a very vibrant community of people who really enjoy food, really enjoy talking about food, really enjoy blogging about their experiences at restaurants, really love showing their creations, love sharing their recipes, and it's not just a one-way thing. It's a two-way interaction.
This is obviously what will be shown at the panel discussion on April 17th. Why don't you tell us who's on the panel? Because I think that'll give people some idea of the range of perspectives that we'll get.
Because we're trying to show partly within an interest group like food, there's a wide range of people that are talking about food online, and at the same time there's all kinds of interconnections that perhaps would not have been possible before. So we have Nick Benninger from Nick and Nat's Uptown 21 talking from a chef's perspective and a restaurant's perspective. We have Paula Costa, who I think your listeners may be familiar with. She's a very well-known, one of the leading food bloggers in Waterloo region.
Lots of recipes,
absolutely. Stephanie Tanner, who runs Little Mushroom Catering.
Many people will have sampled some of her fare, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Trevor Hurley-Braun as well. He's going to be there on behalf of FoodLink, Waterloo region, and talking about how they use social media to connect people to farms.
He's extremely connected to the sort of the mechanics and the technology of tweeting and Facebook and all of that kind of stuff, and has actually been featured, I think, in commercials and whatnot from RIM.
Yes, absolutely.
Because of his use of the BlackBerry and stuff.
Absolutely.
So he's very keen on that, isn't he?
Oh, well, we also have the guy who's behind Waterloo Region's Eats.com, who apparently knows a little something about food and
he eats a lot. He eats a lot. Anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, what are you hoping to get out of this, James? I mean, what is your motivation for this? This is something that you organize. The social media breakfast idea is a brand. You say it's mostly American. It shows up in a lot of places. But you're not a beneficiary here. You're a facilitator.
Yeah, Social Media Breakfast is a nonprofit community organization. I started it up partly because I heard about it at a conference I was going to, and it seemed like an excellent way for people to get their heads around how to use social media and how to improve their use of social media. We have people coming from nonprofits, from small businesses, from large public sector organizations, insurance companies, tech companies. We have people who are just dipping their toes in the water, people who are fully immersed in social media. And it's a way for everybody to get a handle on how to better use social media. And we have these approximately every 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes we do like to focus on a specific segment, such as food panel that we're having this time around.
And there will be some lovely food, I understand, served there, too, down at the Cambridge.
Both hot and cold hors d'oeuvres, yes, and fancy.
Yeah, fancy. It looks like it's really good. I've got a quick glance through the menu. It looks like it's going to be very, very good. So tell us again all the sort of the W5 logistics of it, and where people can get more information, and where people can sign up, because it's open to anybody.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's no membership for Social Media Breakfast. Once you come, we try to keep you in the loop. You can find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. We have a LinkedIn page. We have a Twitter account. We have a website.
Well, you'd have to be in everywhere, wouldn't you?
We have a YouTube channel. Yes. Check us out on YouTube.
Okay.
For this event, it's the evening of April 17th. It starts at 7:30 p.m. It's at the Cambridge Mill. We're going to basically have a few bites to eat when we first get there, and then we'll have the panel discussion until about 8:45, and that's when we'll bring out the food, and there'll be a cash bar as well.
Wonderful. People
can get more information either at socialmediabreakfast.com/Waterloo Region or smBWR14.eventbrite.com.
Wow, that came right off the top of his head as well. I'm quite impressed. Well done. Thank you, James. We appreciate your taking some time to tell us about this very interesting linkage, I guess, between something that's quite high-tech, the whole idea of social media, and something that's very base and essential, which is the food that we put in our mouths. And thank you for coordinating.
You're welcome. Social media is really all about building and participating in communities, and food is an excellent example. And I thank you for this opportunity and for participating on the panel.
Well, if there's anything that has to do with food, you know I'm there. That's James Howe from communicateandhow.com, and he also has a blog, Perspectives from King in Ottawa, kingingottawa.com. And thank you. And we're looking forward to the social media breakfast. Now, I know, looking at Lyle here and Tim, I see you with your BlackBerries out, and I know you're not just taking notes. You're active in this world as well, the social media world?
Oh, yeah, social media, I think, is very important to get our messages out to the public. It keeps the public informed on, for us, fire safety tips and events that are going on in the fire service. So, very important to us.
Oh, I would mirror what Tim says there. Something else that we've just done in Waterloo is with the introduction of the QR codes, we've placed that QR code on all of our fire vehicles now. So whenever a fire prevention vehicle or a fire truck is at a location and people want to learn more about the fire department or fire safety tips, they just scan that QR code and it brings them right to our website.
Wow. Perfect. Great. Thanks, gentlemen. We do have to take a break, but before I go, I want to point out to you that you can watch what's happening here in the studio online via the internet. If you go to the 570news.com page and you click on the webcast button, and I can wave at you and say hello, and you can see these fine gentlemen that are with me in the studio. If that's an alternative way for you to enjoy the show, then we welcome you to it. Now, we do have to take a break, and if Mr. Ainsworth, our controller over there, will get some music running for us, we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about firehouse cookery. We're going to talk a little more about what it means to be in the firehouse and having to deal with the fact of getting your meals and making them interesting and enjoyable. And that's when we come back. You're listening to 570 News.
This is the Food Show with Andrew Coppolino. To call Andrew, 519-570-2545. By cell, star 570. Or toll free, 1-800-570-5715. The Living Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And there we are. Welcome back once again. Now, I misspoke leading out of that last segment. We had to bump ahead and get to Cheryl Peterson rather than get to our firefighter friends here. The Elmira Maple Elmira Maple Syrup Festival, that's hard to say, is decades old. It began in 1965 and continues to be the first food event, pretty much, of the outdoor season in Waterloo Region. Now, joining us on the line is Maple Syrup Festival Chair Cheryl Peterson. Hello, Cheryl. Are you there?
Hi, Andrew. I'm here.
I think we spoke to you about this time last year, didn't we?
Yes, you did.
Always great to hear your voice again, and always great to know that the big Elmira Maple Syrup Festival is coming up. How are things looking this year? We had a kind of an unusual winter, which meant for, I guess, a different sap production. I've heard all kinds of tales about what it will mean. I've heard that the quantities will be a little bit lower, but the quality is going to be very, very high. What's been your take right there on the front lines?
Well, that's exactly what I've heard, too. I've talked to Fred Martin, who's the president of the Waterloo Wellington Maple Syrup Producers, and it's just what you said. The crop was excellent. He said it was excellent quality this year, between 60 to 80% of last year's crop most farmers got. So, but it was really a short season and intense. I guess there was a couple days where he said it just ran like crazy. They just were working around the clock. So I
had the opportunity to, this is the first time this has ever happened to me. I've tapped maple syrup maple trees when I was younger, much younger. I went out to Langdon Hall's sugar bush, and I watched them tap a couple trees there. And as soon as that, is it called a spile?
Yes.
Yeah, they popped that thing in there, and as soon as it went in, the sap came out. It was amazing how quickly it just started to trickle out. So
exactly,
I thought that was a good thing. If I could see it that quickly, there must be lots there. The big event is Saturday, March 31st.
Yes.
Is it true that it's 1965 was the first year? Is that my numbers right there?
That is, yes. We're coming up to our 50th in 2014.
Now, it's a long time. What's the sort of the general lay of the land there? Are there new events this year? Is there anything that's sort of a little bit out of the ordinary, or do we stick to the tried and true?
We're doing both this year, actually. We're staying with the tradition of food, of course. That's what a lot of people come to the festival for. The mall area won't change much. There's all sorts of food for people to eat, and of course our pancake tent with lots of maple syrup. Our Tri-True events, indoor events of our craft and quilt show, our toy show, Mega Mutts dog show, pancake flipping contest, all those traditional events that we want to keep because that's what people come year to year. But this year we do have a couple new things. Chef D from Chef D TV is going to be there, and he's going to be making 2 recipes using maple syrup, so we're excited about that. Eric Traplin's going to join us this year, which of course he's a well-known performer in the area for kids, so we're excited about that. Also, the maple syrup producers, the local maple syrup producers, are erecting a mobile sugar shack downtown. So for people who can't get out to the sugar bush, they'll be able to see how syrup is made. They'll have a little mini evaporator there, some spiles, and some old-fashioned buckets for people to look at.
I guess the technology of this process really hasn't changed, has it? I mean, we were just talking to James here about social media and technology and all that, but maple syrup is still maple syrup, and it's the way we sort of learned it as kids, and it's still the same, basically, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there's a lot more talk about it being good for you, more potassium. It's natural, which the producers are obviously talking about, which is great to hear.
Now, of course, Elmira is close by here to Kitchener-Waterloo. It's only a few minutes outside of the city. What are the kind of numbers that we're talking about that are showing up at this event over the past years in terms of people? Well,
back in 2000, we got into the Guinness Book of World Records to say that we were the largest one-day maple syrup festival, and that year we brought in 66,529 people. We counted them. Last year was our best year ever. I mean, we had close to 80,000 people. We were able to give back to the community and grant money, $60,000. I mean, it was an incredible year. So we're hoping, I don't know if Elmira can swell any larger than 80,000, but we're hoping that by having some new events for people to come out and more of it's always been family, but really focusing on the family, that we can have some more people come out because, of course, when you come out and you spend your money, it stays right in your community.
What about the numbers of pancakes? Have you got any estimate on, I guess you can estimate pretty closely how many gallons of the batter that you use, but what about the actual pancakes themselves? Any sort of rough ballpark figures there?
Well, in the past we've counted that we've maybe served 7,500 pancakes and about 180 gallons worth of syrup.
Wow.
So it's about a ton of batter that we go through.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. And it's about 300 people in that pancake area that are volunteers that help that process go really smooth.
Can you suggest for listeners, anybody that's planning on going out there on March 31st, a sort of a strategy for getting to the venue in a sort of somewhat sane way?
No.
No. Insanity rules the day when it comes to maple syrup.
I mean, we do our best. I mean, we tell people, there's different routes to come in. You can come in east of town or west of town. If you come down the main road, the main highway, you just have to be patient if you're coming by car. The train is running this year, which we're excited about. So they have 3 times that they're coming up. The GRT transit buses will be coming up, and we do have parking at the south end of town. So when you come in, we just ask for a $5 donation. You can park your car, and then we'll bring you into the chaos on tractor and wagon.
Okay.
So you can park outside, and then just if it's supposed to be a nice day so far, fingers crossed. And so it's only about a kilometer walk from your car if you just want to walk and see what the town of Elmira has to offer. You can sort of walk off some of those calories before you start loading up on the pancakes and maple syrup. Yes. Well, that's great. It sounds like it'll be a great day. Just remind us again of the sort of the website and where people can get information about all the great events going on. Sure. Our website is elmiramaplesyrup.com. Very simple like that. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook as well, and of course, yes, of course, like everybody else. It's the theme today. Media, that's it. So, And yeah, it starts at 7. We start serving pancakes at 7 o'clock.
Very good. Thank you very much for joining us today, Cheryl. I appreciate hearing from you.
You're welcome, and thanks for thinking of us.
Good luck with the big day.
Okay, bye, Andrew.
That's Cheryl Peterson. She's the chair of the Elmira Maple Syrup Festival, and you can get more information, as she noted, by going elmiramaplesyrup.com. Gentlemen, maple syrup, favorite food? Something you love? Something you try to stay away from? Something that you use corn syrup instead because it's cheaper?
Well, family prefers the real stuff.
The real stuff, yeah.
Yep.
Do you go out into the country and buy it? I mean, it's really neat to drive. I was driving down toward the farmer's market, and I saw this horse and buggy at the side of the road, and I pulled over and chatted with a nice gentleman there and got stuff right off of his farm. Really cool.
Yeah, we'll hit one of the two markets, either the Kitchener Market or up in St. Jacobs. And
yeah,
kids just love it.
Fire Hall Chef, get that mic over. Do you cook with it?
Actually, I produced my own maple syrup this
year.
You produce?
Oh, tell us about that.
Yeah,
so you get the gear.
It cost me probably $40 a liter to make it myself. So from now on, I think I'm just going to go out and purchase it. But
a neat experiment, though, I guess. Just to try it out.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and the kids got involved.
Yeah. That's
my daughter
the great thing,
made maple syrup sugar candies. And she just loved it. So it was a good time, but a lot of hours spent in the backyard.
So give us the proportions there. 40
to 1.
40 to 1, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting a couple of liters of sap, or not even that much?
Well, when it was really flowing from my trees, I was getting maybe 40, 50 liters of sap. Okay. But like I said, a 40 to 1 reduction, get a liter of maple syrup, and that was it. But I spent hours and hours reducing
And then it's gone at one breakfast.
Yes.
Just about it. People are like, well, I'll have some
it
more
goes
of that.
by pretty fast, that's for sure. Yeah. And I ended up with different qualities of color as well. Different days, it would be lighter, darker, you know.
Even from the same tree.
Interesting, exactly.
Yeah, there's a really interesting. I mean, Ontario and Quebec, I think, together are the largest producers of maple syrup in the world. I think Vermont is nearby, but we do produce an awful lot of maple syrup. And I'm glad to see that the industry is okay with this weird winter that we've been having, at least in southwestern Ontario, that there'll be lots anyway, and the quality will certainly be high. But I found that very, very interesting, that the same tree can produce different kind of maple syrup, color, quality, from really just a couple of days difference. It depends on the heating and the cooling of the tree.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. I think it was the heat of the fire sometimes, too, that would change the color of the syrup as well. So I kind of Mickey Moused it and built my own contraption, but
I hope it was all to code and everything, and it was safe.
Course.
And it was because I'm going to talk to you guys about that a little later on. Thanks. Well, we just want to pop back to James for just a moment, because Mr. Howe here would like to note something about a social media breakfast that we left out of the original interview, and having to do with, I think it's a really great partnership, and it has food relationship, and it's somebody who really knows about the history of food in Waterloo region, Edna Stabler. There's a kind of a linkage here. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. I got off of the segment and I looked at my Twitter feed, and our lead sponsor had asked me to mention her, and I thought I really should.
Busted by social media.
Exactly. Well, saved as well.
Saved, okay.
So WLU Press is our lead sponsor, and it might seem a little odd to be talking about WL Press and a food book by Edna Stabler, Food That Really Schmecks.
Yeah.
But they've done something really neat. And I hope I'm not spilling the beans here, but they've developed an app for Edna's book, Food That Really Schmecks.
I've heard this.
It'll be available for your iPad, and it's coming soon. So they're using our social media breakfast after hours event to launch it.
Terrific.
The local launch, anyhow.
Yeah, certainly. That's great. Thanks very much. Yeah, wonderful. That's James, of course, social media breakfast. My guests are still Lyle Kwan, Waterloo Fire Department, Tim Beckett from the Kitchener Fire Department, and Lou Gomes. He's from the Fire Hall Chef TV show on Rogers, as well as the Cambridge Fire Department. We do have to take a break. When we come back, and I promise that we'll talk to these gentlemen about fire hall cooking. I'm Andrew Coppolino. You're listening to 570 News.
Predicting the weather is no easy task, and at 570 News, we have it down.
All have to eat. You might as well find out where the best food is. From restaurant reviews to the fun of food from around the region to around the world. This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And here we are. Welcome back once again. This is the third segment. And I just have to tell you that Pizza Hut introduced its stuffed crust pizza on this day in 1995. I find that to be an abomination to pizza. Sadly, in 2008, it was on this day in 2008 that Herb Peterson, he's the creator of the McDonald's Egg McMuffin sandwich. He died on this day. There you go. So little food notes for you. Now some local food notes that I want to tell you about. Just a little shout out to a couple of restaurants. I went to Marcello's up in Cambridge. My son picked for his birthday dinner. He picked Marcello's restaurant. Marcello is a very interesting chef. He's Romanian, but he loves to cook Italian food. So he makes some really good Italian dishes if you want to have. I don't know if you know Marcello's on Pine Bush, sort of right near where the big Home Depot is in that corner.
Right.
Just down the street a little bit.
Never eaten there myself.
Try it out. Really good.
Heard good
Yeah,
things
really
about
Italian, good Italian stuff. Yeah. And then, previous to that, I was at the Nick and Nat's Uptown 21. They did a preserving dinner using the preserve ingredients and techniques from author Pat Crocker in concert with Wordsworth Books. So the book was part of the meal. Nick and Nat's chefs there, they put together this great meal. And I've been to a couple of these, and I was really nicely surprised at how wonderful some of the flavors are with preserving and taking pickles and vegetables and all kinds of preserves and putting them on a plate as sort of the main part of the plate. He made a great chicken pate with 3 different preserves to go with it, and that little spark of acidity that you get out of some of these things, just wonderful. And a really great night for Pat Crocker, the author, and the staff at Nick and Nat's and Wordsworth Books as well. Really great to see these events coming together in Waterloo Region, and certainly Benninger's crew there at Uptown 21 are very, very good with creating, I think, helping create this great culture and food that we're getting in Waterloo Region. So really congratulations to everybody involved in that night. I also went to Zare's Laurentian on Saturday afternoon at 12 o'clock to observe the Parmesan cheese cracking Guinness Book of World Records challenge that they were trying to crack 300 of these gigantic wheels of Parmesan at the same time and get into the book. I think the previous record was 270 or something like that, set by Whole Foods in the United States. And I think they did it. I haven't seen the final figures and all of that. But it's really a very interesting process. First of all, this is the king of cheeses as far as they say. It's a huge, I don't think you could put your arms around this cheese. I couldn't anyway, put my arms around it. One of you strapping big firefighters might be able to do it, but I couldn't do this. I couldn't put my arms around this big cheese. It's 80 pounds roughly, and it's worth $3,000 apparently, according to the Zares people. And they use about 5 different knives. They have this little wooden box, like you would open up your special barbecue tools, they have this little wooden box that opens up. There's 5 or 6 different knives in there, and they score that outside rind, and then they sort of keep scoring, and then they plunge these wedges down into the center of it on each side, and then basically it just sort of falls apart. It just sort of cracks open in the middle like you were splitting a diamond or something like that, and they open it up, and it's just beautiful. And then they shave off little bits, and they gave to the participants and to the crowd that was there at Zares. And apparently they did this across all the Loblaws and Zares stores in Ontario and I guess across the country. So 300 of these cheeses, and I'm trying to do the math on this. It must be like an immense amount of money because each one of these wheels is $3,000. So someone that's good with figures can figure out, I don't know whether $900,000, I don't know, it's huge. Anyway, very, very expensive. Lovely stuff. Now, this cheese was only 2 years old. Parmesan, I think, has to be aged a minimum of 2 years. And then it can be released. But there are some cheeses that are as old as 6 and 9 years old. Mm-hmm. So you can see the value would go up accordingly. So, and that's another great thing I think that's happening too. When I see grocery stores that are getting involved with real food stuff happening right here in our region, not just sort of product that's brought in. It helps people see where this stuff comes from. It isn't just, a packaged product that you find on the grocery shelf. Someone has to make this cheese, someone has to open it up, cut it, and prepare it. And this is a good sign, I think, for our region that there's this food culture that's growing around us. Now, on to firefighting and food. I've got 3 firefighters here. They all come from different cities. They all have common backgrounds in their training. And I'm going to throw a little historical question out for you, gentlemen, Tim, Lyle, and Lou. When did firefighters start living together in a house, and sort of that's what they do? Is that an old historical thing? Who can give me an answer on that?
Well, if I could start off with, just to give you a bit of background here, firefighting was really a community thing. You'd have the small town, they'd know they'd have to have some kind of response to fires. Mm-hmm. So all the personnel would take on that role in one way, shape, or form. However, as townships grew and became cities, they realized they needed full-time fire response and emergency response. And as a result of that, they became paid in one way, shape, or form, whether it was on call or full-time. And that's where they created the actual station and created the firehouse, and that's where the original term came from. So the firefighters would take shifts, so whether it was a 24-hour shift or a longer shift. And hence, that's where the cooking started, because if you weren't a good cook, well, you got stuck with, mucking out the stalls with the horses that were pulling the wagons at the time or something like that.
Okay, I see.
So that's kind of a bit of history of how it all began.
Okay. Of course, I'm speaking with Lyle Kwan from the Waterloo Fire Department, Tim Beckett from the Kitchener Fire Department, the chiefs, respectively. And I'm going to ask now Lou Gomes, who's with Cambridge Fire Department and the Fire Hall Chef, celebrity show host. What happens today? What's the nature of a firefighter's lifetime? Sort of daytime business. Do they spend a lot of time in the firehouse now? And who does the cooking? And how does all that sort of fall into place? Nice and close. Yeah.
I think it depends on the crew and the atmosphere of that station. Also, what days of the week it is. I know with some crews, Saturday and Sunday they'll have a meal, whether it's a breakfast or a dinner. They get together and do that. Other ones, the guys and the girls kind of create their own meals, bring that in. Other ones, they'll take turns. So one day, one firefighter cooks dinner for everybody, then the next day it's someone else, and that kind of happens. I prefer that myself. It's good for team building. It's a good atmosphere there. But they are quite busy in the fire halls now. I've only been on 10 years, but I've already seen a difference where we're out in the community doing a lot more. Right. So we aren't sitting around at the fire hall all that much anymore. Okay. So the cards aren't being played and that sort of thing anymore.
Tim Beckett, City of Kitchener, in what Lou's describing, it seems to me that you're going to get, when you have different people cooking, you're going to get a wide range of food coming out of the kitchens. What are your experiences?
Well, yeah, I think what we're seeing is a lot of different specialties coming out, and it's great being really a non-cooker myself. When I first started on the fire department, it was great because you'd work alongside many of these people, and you bring the recipes home. My wife absolutely loves it when I come home with something new. So, but a wide range, and with the diversity that we're starting to see come into the fire service now, you're getting a lot of different types of foods that weren't traditional. Your traditional bacon and eggs for breakfast, and your roast beefs and turkey dinners and things like that. You're seeing a lot of the Italian meals coming into play, and a lot of different ethnic
greater
foods.
ethnicities. Yeah, just a general sort of cross-section of our society in general, I guess.
I think it's wonderful.
Right. Well, okay. Well, let me ask you this question: what if, Lyle, I'm a firefighter there, and I decide I'm going to cook rabbit tonight? What would happen? I mean, are there rules? Are there boundaries? Like, do you have to stay within certain? Is there a big blackboard or something that says I will not eat bunny, or I will not eat, Bambi, or whatever?
Well, I guess the only real restriction in most fire halls is finding out allergies. For example, I have an allergy to wheat. So guys would know that, and they'd say, well, okay, then let's look at what we can design around there. But generally, you plan a week or so ahead when you know you're coming on shift and who's going to cook and what they're going to cook. So you get an idea. And if something was an absolute disaster, well, that's where we'd mark it on that do not do again board. But other than that, it's pretty much wide open.
Okay.
Is it you want to have the pizza store number
ready
to go too for that.
Is it competitive, Lou? Is it something that, that guy's lasagna was pretty good, but I think he blew it here, and I'm going to try this, and I'll make it better. Is there that kind of aspect to it?
Yeah, definitely, and that's what makes it great.
Okay.
The food that comes from these fire halls and the chefs that are there is just amazing. And if you go to my show, I had a couple Kitchener firefighters on my show, Carlin Riley and Gord Snyder. Yeah. Just amazing meals. They treated their guys and girls to a great dinner, that's for sure, both of them.
So you have your daily chores and duties to keep ready to go. You got to, brush the Dalmatian and
feed the horses.
Feed the horses. You do your daily chores, whatever needs to be done. You might go out to an event. You might have that civic presence, as Lyle was talking about. Are meals then, do they become real center points of sort of, an event, something that the firefighters themselves look forward to?
I think so, personally. I know I definitely did. And like I said, it's a great team building time where everybody sits around together, you discuss things, maybe what happened at calls, training, that sort of thing while you're eating. I just love it. I think most people do. Other than, for some of them, it's a bit of a chore when they have to cook for, let's say, 10, 12 people if you're at headquarters. But for the most part, they like it.
Okay, well, Lou's show is called the Fire Hall Chef. Is that firehallchef.com? Is there a website?
Yep, the firehallchef.com.
Firehallchef.com, yeah.
Yep.
And it's on Rogers TV, of course. Now, you get to go into all of the fire halls, I guess, or most of the fire halls throughout the region. Tell us about some of the things you've seen there being prepared. Do they show you what they actually cooked for firefighters, or do they try to show off a little bit and do some things that they would never cook for firefighters, but I'll show this guy that I know I know my way around a stove?
They do like to show off their skills. And as soon as they find out that I'm paying the bill for their food, boy, do they cook up huge meals. Carlin with Kitchener cooked up beef tenderloin. Gore did some lamb steaks. Out of Louis' wallet again. Patrick Mathieu from Waterloo did shrimp Creole with cornbread. That was just amazing. He is a great chef, too.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. But and then tying in with the maple syrup, I did a show with the volunteer department in Woolwich, St. Jacobs. We went to the market, got our ingredients. Morgan Elliott cooked up homemade pasta, but he had maple syrup flavored sausage that he broke up and made into a meat sauce with that. So that was really good.
So who makes the best chili here? Is there a Fire Hall chili? Kitchener.
Yeah.
I want to count that all. Via social media just a little while ago, there was a little bit of trash talk going back and forth from these guys. Lyle, you wouldn't say that Kitchener's chili is the best, eh?
Well, no, I think we need a showdown here.
Okay, all right. Well, there you got it. Well, we'll have to get that going. Okay. Now we are gonna have a showdown. I'm glad you brought that up, Lyle, because we are gonna have a showdown because I got a funny little quiz here that I'm gonna ask you guys. But Craig, let's get the third caller on the line, and if a caller would like to participate in this quiz with the brain trust of the firefighting crews here in Waterloo Region, we'll get them on the line as well. So, Craig, if you could start that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to do a quick little quiz with the firefighters, and maybe a caller, too. We'll call in. There's no prizes involved. Oh, no, Lou, you've got some shirts and stuff you can give away. We can give away some shirts. Okay, perfect.
For sure.
You're listening to 570 News.
This is the Food Show with Andrew Coppolino. To call Andrew, 519-570-2545. By cell, star 570. Or toll free, 1-800-570-5715. Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And there we go. Back once again, last part of the show. I was singing that song the other day, Craig, and I was sort of humming it to myself, and I couldn't figure out why it came into my head. And I realized that I was working on prepping the show, and I guess it just sort of, there was some sort of, connection, synapse fired, and there I was singing that tune. Was it Peppermint in Time? I can't remember the name of that song. Someone tell me the name of that song, please. It's just bugging me. We have a few minutes left now. We have 5 questions here for these gentlemen, and we're going to throw it open to you. We'll see who can come closest to some of these questions. They're very, very difficult, though. Okay, very difficult. They are, and I'm not kidding. These are very difficult. Okay, so what unit of measure is approximately 2,150 cubic inches? What unit of measure?
You weren't kidding.
I wasn't. That's a bushel. Oh. Everyone knows that.
That was going to be my second guess.
Yeah.
All right. So we're at zeros there. All right. This one is a little bit more difficult. This dish probably originated in the middle of the 18th century as a thick oatmeal gruel or hardtack and molasses that were cooked together. It was a basic item in a ship's mess served to English sailors as early as 1750. It eventually developed into something quite different in America, especially in the southern United States. If anybody's traveled to Kentucky.
Would that be grits?
Close. It's not exactly. Burgoo, it's called. Burgoo. It eventually developed into what would contain anything that would be on hand. Now get this, and this is why I've included these questions, especially squirrels, hens, and pigs, and a variety of root vegetables and seasonings. Now here's an old recipe. 800 pounds of lean beef with no bones or fat, 1 dozen squirrels for each 100 gallons, and 240 pounds of fat hens or roosters, besides potatoes, cabbage, tomatoes, carrots, and other vegetables. So when you're traveling in Kentucky, ask for the burgoo. Burgoo. There you go. Yeah. Now here's another recipe. See if you can guess what country this comes from. Take some fish and dehydrate it, then soak it for 8 days, then soak it in lye for 2 days, then soak it in water for another 2 days, and then you poach it for 15 minutes. What's this called? It's called luktfish. It's a Scandinavian dish that's traditionally served with a cream sauce. So if you want to soak your food in lye, I don't really know what lye is, but I know it's pretty. It's sort of a caustic kind of agent, isn't it? Yeah. There you go. Let's see. When Ben & Jerry's obtained funding to start their ice cream company, the backers insisted that they also sell what other item? Candy bars, soup, bubble gum, hot dogs, or cheesecake. So Ben & Jerry's ice cream, they had to start with some other food they were serving.
I'm going to go with hot dogs.
Okay. Anybody else they want to guess?
I'm going to guess cheesecake.
I'll go with the bubble gum.
Nope, you're all wrong. It's soup. And the reason is the money men were worried that backing an ice cream business would be troublesome somewhat in the cold climate of Vermont. So they insisted that soup be sold.
Yeah, little did they know.
Now here's a candy question, the last question. So we're zeros, guys. We're zeros across the board here.
Well, it's tied, right?
Okay.
Nobody walks out a loser.
I love that positive thinking. This dessert item takes its name from a 16th century duke. While living in Paris, he created a perfume for scenting gloves. It became so popular that a local pastry cook started making them into an item and added the glove scent, essentially, to the pastry. Can you name the dessert item? It's kind of a candy.
Peppermint patty?
Close, I guess, yeah. No, the guy's name was Frangipani, and he used almonds in his glove perfume, so that became Frangipan, that kind of...
Frangipan?
Yeah,
marzipan?
Yeah, it's like marzipan, yeah. Well, there you go. So zeros across the board.
Yay, team.
Okay, look, before we go, the key here, Lou mentioned earlier in the day, off before we were on air, about grass fires happening. Everything's really dry. Can we settle just a little bit about understanding sort of backyard barbecue, fire safety, and stuff like that? Real quick, Tim.
Well, in the city of Kitchener, we have open air burning bylaw permits the use of these outdoor appliances, given a lot of restrictions. And if you want to see what the restrictions are, you can go on the City of Kitchener website. Okay. Too numerous to go through right now.
All right. From your perspective in Waterloo, Lyle?
We're very much the same in Waterloo. But anyone who's doing any kind of cooking, outside cooking, I would just say check the area around you, and make sure that things are clear and everything, so that you're not worried about a spark coming off.
Okay. And what about Lou and Cambridge?
Very similar to what's going on in Kitchener and Waterloo. But yeah, you got to be extra careful. I also live out in the country, and there is a lot of open air burns there. But with the winds and the dryness, they just seem to be catching everything else on fire. So we've been pretty busy out Pusslands Township way.
So pulling your barbecue out now after the winter, you haven't used it. Some people don't. Propane tanks. It's just some safety guidelines there as people start up.
Well, we're looking for people to go through the checks, making sure that spiders like to they get into the little orifices and things like that. So make sure they're all clean and clear. And we want to make sure that your propane tanks or your gas connections are tight and fixed up, so we're not looking at leaks.
Okay.
Yeah, interestingly enough, barbecue that I had, a family of squirrels nested in it.
Well, you could use them then to make burgoo.
Yeah, there you go.
Let me write that one down right now.
Well, that's it. Later, that's it for the show for this week. My thanks to Tim Beckett, Lyle Kwan, Lou Gomes, James Howe, and Cheryl Peterson. Thanks also to studio personnel here at 570 News, internet producers Jordan Carbone and Catherine Drake, and studio operator Craig Ainsworth. Visit 570news.com for an archive of past shows, and you can follow the Food Show at twitter.com, 570 Food Show, and read my column in the Kitchener Post each and every Friday. Remember, eat wisely and eat well. Thank you for joining us here on The Food Show, only on 570 News.
I'm here